Good evening, Tigard. Thank you for joining me for my monthly chat. As always, this is an opportunity to answer your questions and hear your comments about Tigard. We got more technology going on tonight than normal. We've got streaming to YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and lots of fancy things we've not tried before. So hopefully that will all go well and you can hear me well. I hear next month maybe, or sometime soon, I might be on Twitch. I don't know what that'll look like, but you can see me playing the part of Mayor maybe in some video game. All right, we'll give you a few minutes to drop your questions in the chat box while I share some news and latest updates from the city. So the first is that it is time to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. And on the Talking Tigard podcast, Cynthia Gomez, the director of Community and Civic Impact at Portland State University, is helping us, the City of Tigard, celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. She discusses how the Latinx community is shaping our region, the actions that local government should take to engage the Latinx community, and the lessons learned from the renaming of 39th Avenue to Cesar Chavez Boulevard in Portland. So tune into that. Also want to give you an update about leaf disposal. Being in Oregon, this is always very important and critical information. So we have leaf disposal combined with a food drive event at Cook Park on 4 different Saturdays in the next couple months. So I'm going to give you that info now. We are asking people to drop off their leaves and to donate a non-perishable food item at the 19th annual free leaf disposal and food drive. So be at Cook Park at the end of 92nd Avenue, just off of Durham Road near Tigard High School. And you can drop the leaves off along with your food items between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. on the following Saturdays. So the first one is November 6th. We have November 20th, December 4th, and December 11th. So I'm sure all that information is also on the city website. If you need more details. There's also an opportunity with the Oregon Department of Transportation to provide input about the future of bike and pedestrian projects near Metzger Elementary on Hall Boulevard. So they have a brief survey to support a proposed project to bring sidewalks to the Metzger area. And here are some of the project details. So Hall Boulevard connects homes, parks, and schools and businesses in both Metzger and Tigard. The sidewalk and bike lanes on Hall Boulevard are incomplete. That's kind of true up and down Hall all over the city, but it is true in the Metzger area. And the street's been identified as a barrier for children walking or biking to Metzger Elementary. And so there are 2 to 3 lanes right now that serve around 14,500 cars and trucks a day, and the posted speed limit is 40 miles per hour. So, with all that said, I believe that there's input that you can provide to ODOT. I'm sure we can provide the information and where to do that in the chat and share that. So let's see. Alan Smith, good to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. He says, "Hi, Mr. Mayor. Thanks again for doing these live chats with Tigard citizens. Any updates about the Ava Roasteria headquarters coming to Main Street?" I have not heard a really recent update about where they're at. The last time I was in downtown, I don't believe I saw it under construction yet. So we can certainly get a more specific response for you. So the staff that are here tonight can take that question, Mr. Smith. And if I know we have your contact information, but if you want to just send it in as a direct message to the city, make sure we can get a response to you that's more specific once our planning and engineering team can tell you exactly where that's at from the city perspective. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to, if there are permits approved, that doesn't mean they have to start the construction right that moment, but it can at least give you an idea of where they're at. Let's see, we've got something from, is it from Taylor?
Joe Taylor.
Joe Taylor. Oh, the computer's putting a paragraph symbol in there. That's not helpful. I can't even read it. Okay. Joe Taylor, hello Mayor Snider. I'm interested in reducing my environmental impact by increasing what my family recycles. 1,384 other families in Tigard, representing up to 5,000 city residents or so, have also indicated a willingness to sign up for Ridwell, a business which offers home pickup of specific recyclables every 2 weeks. They offer pickup of items not easily recycled elsewhere, namely plastic film and used up clothing and fabric. I will just share that I am feeling like I'm reading an advertisement right now, but I'll continue here. Currently, plastic film left in local grocery store recycling collection bins are often sent to the dump due to being contaminated with garbage from thoughtless shoppers, and there is no official way to recycle used up clothing or rags. Ridwell offers a source for recycling these items. We have a Costco. We have a massive amount of plastic film going into our garbage. We have cheap mass-produced clothing. We have massive amounts of textiles going into our garbage. Pride Disposal has not offered Tigard's citizens a way to recycle these items. Ridwell has not yet been able to operate in Tigard due to existing city regulations. What can be done to change the regulations that are holding this up? So there are some really specific examples, really specific information that I can share responding to the examples that you're providing. So the first thing I need to share with you is that under Oregon law, and this is not something we set, under Oregon law, Ridwell is classified based on their business model as a solid waste, basically a solid waste provider. That's what Pride Disposal and other solid waste franchisees in the city of Tigard are, and in Washington County and throughout the state. Ridwell thus far has been unwilling to consider itself a solid waste provider, and therefore does not have the requisite, or doesn't meet the requirements to provide those services within the state, and within specifically the metro regional government is who authorizes and oversees the sort of the collection end of the waste stream for solid waste. And so Ridwell does not have, and my understanding, I'm not the expert at this, but I do ask about this pretty regularly. My understanding is that they thus far have sort of approached, and this is an overgeneralization, but the best way I can describe it is they have approached the not wanting to be regulated and not believing that the current laws apply to them in a way that's kind of similar to Uber and Lyft in the early days compared to taxi services, and that resulted in a whole new layer of regulations, or different regulations for rideshare companies. And so I think the best answer I can provide for you now is that we're very aware of Ridwell's desires. They do get regulated in the solid waste regulatory framework that exists in the state of Oregon. And until they're willing to do what they need to do to become a solid waste provider, they're not going to be allowed by Metro, the state, or the various government entities that provide for franchises for solid waste. They're not going to be in that system. I also want to make a point about Pride Disposal here, because Pride Disposal it is actually not true that Pride Disposal has not offered these services. But what everyone needs to understand in our community, and really throughout Washington County and the whole metro area, is that the solid waste franchise, when it is set up, it is for a certain amount of services, and that is what is paid for, and that is what is essentially provided by the haulers. Pride Disposal and Waste Management have both indicated that they are more than willing to provide these services. They've also offered and indicated they're willing to provide other services that the city of Portland receives that we, for example, in Tigard don't have now. One that comes to mind is being able to take compost. So Pride in particular is, actually both haulers, Pride at our council meetings have said, we're willing and ready to make those changes. We just need to, have the framework to do that, and then the rates have to be set differently. So that Pride Disposal essentially charges us, all of the residents, a small profit, and the rest of what they collect is just used to pay for all their services. So anytime we change their services, that means they either need more or fewer trucks, more or fewer drivers, and all of that plays into how much it costs to provide the services. So I think we've probably covered that about as well as I can. Let's see, we've got a comment or question from Ulf. Add 2 to 3 bottle drop sites. I'm all in favor of recycling, but the one bottle drop location in Tigard isn't able to keep up with the demand. We need more sites to return material that can be recycled. So that is some feedback that we can provide. I'm going to ask our staff to make sure that we provide that feedback to the Oregon Beverage Recycling Corporation. That is not a city function, and those bottle drop sites are actually set up with the sort of coordination and participation and partnership with grocery stores who are obligated under certain conditions to take returns, and if they're within a certain distance of one of those bottle drop sites, then they don't have to take them anymore, which is sort of how that whole system works. So we can certainly give that feedback back to the group that operates those bottle drop sites, but that is not necessarily something the city can directly control. Tom Woodruff is asking, when will the Nick Wilson space be completed and dedicated? Tom, good question, and I know I think you asked Councillor Newton and I this recently in another venue. I want to ask staff to get back to Tom with that, and since Tom used to be a city councilor, I'm hoping the city has his contact information still. I would like to be copied on that, so I'd like to know the answer to Tom's question as well. Why is the city requiring employees to receive the COVID vaccine? The city manager made that decision at an administrative level, and it does apply to all city employees that the city can require. I believe our sworn police officers are exempt under state law from that specifically, or from that requirement, or us implementing that. But I don't know that I can respond to exactly what the decision-making reasons were from the city manager, other than I think that he believes in science. We believe in protecting people that can be protected, and the vaccine has been proven to be safe and effective, and there is certainly an exemption process for both religious exemption requests and also for medical exemptions. So that is what I'll share there. And then how was COVID impacted by the city's finances? I think that's probably, how did COVID impact the city's finances, probably is the question. That question's been asked a number of times before, and I will just cover it briefly now that, our operations continued, albeit in a different form. Our revenues we don't have a lot of revenues. Like, we're not operating a zoo. We're not operating an airport. So many of the things, or most of the things that we are responsible for providing, like your water, your sewer, your police, even the library continued operating. There were not significant changes in either the service level or in our revenue to support most of the city's operations. There was a decision made to not hire, so you could consider this sort of some form of a layoff of on-call staff and seasonal staff, during the first summer of COVID. I can't believe I'm saying the first summer of COVID, but I am. So the summer of 2020, that is not the case now, as I think everybody's learned how to cope and live with COVID more, and we know more about the science, and we have many people that are vaccinated. In fact, 82% of Washington County adults now are vaccinated, and that's tremendous and awesome. So I think that kind of covers the COVID question. Heard the city is making a push to address climate change. What exactly does that look like? So that looks like a lot of different things. And frankly, the path we're on right now is working through as a community and really beginning the work to figure out what it does look like for our community. There are things that I think members of the city council, including myself, think that should be included in our community resiliency plan. And I guess I want to make sure that everybody knows that it's more than just climate change. We are looking at it from a holistic community resiliency perspective, and climate change is certainly one of those things. Members of the council, certain members of the city council, including myself, are very interested in some climate smart things that actually could save money, because those are just sort of no-brainer type things. So looking at the number of electric vehicles that are in our current fleet, or lack thereof. Right now, I don't think we have any all-electric vehicles in our fleet that I know of. And that's some very low-hanging fruit. We can save, especially in departments that we have employees driving a lot. Those are, really ripe to be electrified and actually save the city money, because operating an electric vehicle is much cheaper. So the more you drive it, the more your return on investment. See, we have a question about when Universal Plaza will be completed. And I don't know that I know the exact end date. I know that it's supposed to be under construction, I believe, starting next spring or summer. But we can get, whoever's asked that question, we can get a detailed response back to them, unless that was a planted question from the staff, which I tend to think it might have been. Kent, do we have some additional questions rolling in from the community?
Let's see what we got here, Mayor. Well, while we're looking for this, I think the obvious question is, what will you be dressed up as for Halloween?
Oh, Kent, I don't dress up for Halloween. I'm kind of a Halloween stinker. Even in 7th grade, I still have the shirt now. I have an orange and black shirt that says, "This is my costume." So that's pretty boring. But what is my favorite Halloween candy? Now that is an exciting topic. I think I already had to provide this in a written response to the city team, and will probably be pushed out if it hasn't been already. I think I had to really kind of work through it to make sure I got it accurate. So Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and Twix are kind of the two things on the, and I'll do Snickers too. Those are kind of like in the chocolate peanut butter family. And then I also like the Tootsie Roll fruit, not regular Tootsie Rolls, but the Tootsie Roll fruits and dots. So those are my favorite Halloween candies. And I know we're competing with the Seahawks game, right, Kent?
We are.
How are we doing at competing? Do we have very many viewers?
Let's see. We got 15 to 20 viewers. I think it might be halftime of the Seahawks game, so you might.
We're getting some more.
You might be catching a break.
We should advertise during the Seahawks game next time, I think. Oh, we got a Seahawks score: Seahawks 7 and the Rams 3.
There we go.
Halftime.
On YouTube.
All right.
Mayor,
3 viewers on YouTube. Those are probably my 3 children.
Mayor, we have a question about houselessness and what the city's approach is to dealing with the increased, this person's perception that there's an increase in homelessness in Tigard.
Well, there's certainly been some, first of all, I'll acknowledge that that the city, and I think our downtown businesses in particular, have noticed that. And so we've actually been really actively working this, both by conducting an assessment in downtown Tigard and then throughout Tigard more recently, and then having conversations with downtown business owners about their needs. Both the library director, Bernard, and our police chief, Kathy McAlpine, are both the leads for the city on the city council goal related to homelessness and houselessness. So they've taken this on as well. And we are partnering with Washington County to make sure that encampments are either safe or cleaned up quickly, and not having environmental impacts. The challenges are real, though. We have to get people connected with services, and to do that, we need to have places for them to go that are viable. We're working on that also with Just Compassion and a day center that they currently operate, but then also working with them to partner for, in the long term, a transitional shelter that can house many, many people while they're waiting for more permanent housing. That's a couple years off, and so one of the questions that's often asked is, what do we do between now and then? And we're also working with Just Compassion about that, and there's a variety of strategies around that. So that's kind of the summary answer. I would say that if you are really interested in details, the city council meeting in mid-September, I want to say the 14th, but I could be wrong about that on the exact date. But mid-September, we had a very robust report out and dialogue at the city council that was very detailed, and I would encourage you to check that out. Oh, we got a news alert. The new cafe is open at the Tigard Library, and there's a new eatery run by entrepreneur Israel Martinez. It's now open in the lobby, and I am afraid that if I try to say the name properly, I'm going to ask staff if they can help me with saying that correctly.
El Cuadrilatero.
El Cuadrilatero.
Latero.
Did I hit that almost right?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We've got one. I would expect we got a new comment or question. I would expect Tigard to hire individuals based on their qualifications only. Also, since all residents of Tigard live in Tigard, shouldn't all employees live in Tigard? I wouldn't want a resident of Portland writing policies for residents of Tigard. So I saw that comment. Did that come in during the chat? Because I feel like I saw that
Earlier.
comment. Okay, I saw that comment on a post from the city a couple days ago or yesterday, perhaps. So first of all, everyone that gets hired at the city has to meet the qualifications for the job, and that's a requirement of the job. And the other thing I will say is that we, at the same time, we also expect the city and the city's employees to more reflect our community at large than maybe it did in the past due to a whole variety of factors. And it's interesting to me what small kinds of changes can be made that dramatically change who is perceived to be the most qualified people for a job. So we have been able to get more diverse candidates into our final applicant pools simply by masking their names and addresses on resumes. So what does that tell you? Think about that for a minute. So, you know, you can say you wanted the most qualified people to be hired, but when we have names and addresses on resumes, we end up getting a certain result. And when we take them off, we get more, you know, the most qualified applicants in a less biased way. I'm not going to say a completely unbiased way, because I think if I've learned anything in the last year or two about bias, it's that we all have bias and we all have unconscious bias in particular. And the only way to combat unconscious bias is to be aware of it and to be doing things that we know from an evidence perspective help check your unconscious bias. So yeah, we want the most qualified people hired. And as far as whether every single Tigard employee should or must live in the city, I'm going to say that's a lot more complicated question because, for example, our members of our police department, it is very uncomfortable when you are sometimes doing things with people you know or in your own neighborhood, just doing your job, but your job is unpleasant and you're going to see that person at the store or in some other environment. I actually had that happen once when I was a reserve police officer living in the city, and I walked into the used to be the Albertsons at 99W and Durham Road, and a guy I had just helped arrest was standing in the checkout line right next to me about 3 days after that happened. And I will just say that was a very uncomfortable encounter, and not a situation that if I were in full-time law enforcement, I would want to have happen a lot. Now, what I will say is that I absolutely believe our police officers should be part of our broader community, and we have many, many police officers from adjoining or jurisdictions right next to ours that choose Tigard home for the same reason that many of our police officers choose other very close communities. And some choose to live in Tigard, and that's fine too. But that's a choice that, for example, in that group of people or that group of employees, they really need to be afforded some opportunity to work in a city and not have to live next to the same people that they have to have very unpleasant encounters with sometimes just to do the basic functions of their job. And it's, that's a safety issue for them and for their family potentially. So let's see, there's some green space along the sidewalk on Ash Avenue between Burnham and the Transit Center parking lot. Is there a possibility of having a public garden there, or is that private space? We can get back to you. If you provide your contact info, we can get back to you with an answer on that specifically. I have walked that, but I don't remember specifically, and I would not know who owned it. So staff, let's get that back. If the individual who put that in the chat wants to send their contact information via direct message to the city, that would be great. What else do we have, or do we need another update in the Seahawks game? They back from halftime yet? I guess we'll know when our viewership drops, right?
They're back from halftime.
They're back from halftime, okay.
They're in the third.
In the third quarter, all right. Well, you keep us up to date on any scores. We want to be your place for Seahawk updates. All right, do we have any other questions coming in, staff?
All caught up for now.
Okay, we're all caught up for now. 7 o'clock. I know we're on a little bit of a tape delay here, broadcasting by about 30 seconds to a minute and a half or so. So I will certainly wait for any additional questions for a moment, and maybe a little bit uncomfortable with some silence, but why don't you use that time to just think for yourself for a moment about why you love living in Tigard. How about that?
I want to do a reminder about the raft.
A reminder about the raft program?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Resident Aided Fund of Tigard, the raft program, we are doing a third round of funding community, basically community organizations that support residents of Tigard. And if you are one of those entities and you would like funding for supporting our community, it is another opportunity. Third round of raft funding. And Kent, do you know the deadline on that for applying?
We just extended the deadline, actually.
Extended the deadline, October 18th.
Yep.
All right. And do I see up on the screen, we're going to play some Tigard trivia? Let's see what the staff have up their sleeve. Do we have any more questions coming in?
Let's see. We're caught off from Maxine dropped her email address in there, so we'll follow up on the green space question that
Okay.
that she asked about it. And then throughout the month, we've been doing Tigard trivia in celebration of the city's 60th anniversary celebration. And so the question today is, what year did telephone service begin in Tigard, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, and this is testing my knowledge
This
of
is.
telephone service in
Yes.
Tigard.
We'll see how you do.
Well, this is it's a multiple choice.
Yes, we'll give
okay.
you four choices here.
Okay. Well, I could get a little cranky about this. We'll see.
Uh-oh. I feel like you're going to disagree already with the.
Well, none of those can be accurate because I'm going to take Tigard to being the city of Tigard, and the city of Tigard didn't exist in any of those 4 years. Ooh.
Okay, touche.
But let me answer what you're. One of the staff is saying that's semantics. Let's see if I can guess. I'm going to go with 1908. Am I right?
That's right.
Correct.
That is right.
Wow.
That is right.
Okay.
It's amazing.
My choices, just so you know, if anybody hasn't seen this, the choices were 1884, which I just thought was way too early, and 1948. That was also way too late. And so my real choices were 1901 and 1908. And, if you know your Tigard history, Tigard was very rural until pretty late in the 20th century. And so I felt like there may have been phone service in areas nearby in 1901 or in greater areas. But I guess I'm working you through how I reasoned out the answer.
Well, a popular question this week, it was in our city newsletter, and folks have been debating this one. In 1920, on what site was Tigard High School located? You have four choices, Mr. Mayor. Cook Park, the John Tigard House, Rite Aid, or Davidson's on Highway 99.
In 1920?
Yep.
That's a great question, and we know the answer to that?
We do.
We do know the answer to that.
Confirmed it.
And I feel like I want the answer to be Rite Aid, but I think the answer is Davidson's.
You should have stuck with your inclination.
Rite Aid was right?
Yep.
I knew the others were not right.
Yeah.
But,
Rite Aid. There you go.
all right. You got any others you're going to throw at me? Have we gotten any more questions from our community?
I think we're all caught up on the.
Because that's what we're here
we
for.
are here.
And do we have a last Seahawks update? Anyone? I guess we're working on more trivia here.
So I think we
All right.
caught up all the questions here.
All right, Tigard, I don't want to take more of your time unnecessarily tonight. So have fun with the Seahawks. Good to see you all. Have a great evening. Good night, Tigard.